Welcome to the first video of the Sailing Academy. I'm very happy to have Mathew Belcher as my very first guest. And yeah, let's just get started. Generally, I would like to talk about 5 things with you. First is your career, like how you got into sailing and your way to the Olympic gold medal. Second is the 470, because you've been sailing it for quite some time. Third would be your life apart from sailing, so what's going on next to your Olympic sailing. Fourth, emotions. And fifth, your ideas about your career after Olympic sailing. So let's get started with the first topic. How did you get into sailing? How old have you been? And what was the first boat you were sailing?
Yeah, I started sailing, I guess, when I was 5 or 6 years old. It was out the front of my parents' place. As a family, we lived on the canal, so we had really easy access to the water. And I first really got introduced probably through my brother. My brother was interested in sailing. He was 18 months older than I was, and each weekend as a family we would go out on my dad's powerboat. He would tow us a sabo, which is quite similar to an optimist. And very, very old. We could barely float, but it was good fun. And it was sort of my boat and my brother's boat, and we learned to take care of the boat. And every weekend we'd get it ready and have a great time. I do remember the first time that I started. I think I cried for an hour and a half. I didn't want to go by myself. My parents just chucked me out and said, "Here you go."
So you shared a boat with your brother?
So I shared a boat with my brother.
That worked?
It's challenging. It's challenging. It was a great experience to be able to do it together. And I think when you have siblings and as parents now, you want to try and get them into the same thing. It makes it a little bit easier.
I know that pretty well.
Running the kids off at every different sports but yeah, really great memory, and that sort of led me to enjoy sailing. Just I guess continue to club programs, state programs, and then obviously onto the national scene. Does
Australian Sailing as a federation already have some support at that time, or?
Yeah, I'm going to show my age a bit here. The Australian sailing team didn't really start until 2006. Yachting Australia back then had their program. Definitely not as established to what it is now. Now it's great to see such a clear pathway between club, state and national, and then onto Olympic. So I think the kids and the youth coming through now are quite fortunate with that. But yeah, certainly I had a lot of support through Southport Yacht Club and Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron, my 2 local clubs, and they had really good club coaches, and then went into the state program at that point, and was able to get the right skill set that I needed, and the right timing, I guess, as well, and won the right events, and it just sort of easy pathway, I guess.
So when you came to the club programs, the clubs took over most of the organizing and things, or still your parents were still involved in the whole thing?
Yeah, my parents were always involved. Even at Olympic, the level we're at the moment, they don't travel like they used to, but certainly in the first 6 or 7 years of 470 running Olympic programs, they would come to the World Championships just to follow, and they've been a big part of my career, and without them driving me around in the beginning and financially supporting and emotionally supporting, there's no way I would.
So that's
sort of be
the
sitting
same
here
everywhere, all over the world, that you need the support of your parents.
Yeah, you do, and I think that's kind of unique to sailing in a little bit. But certainly, your parents are big motivators, big drivers to see sometimes what you don't see, and to keep pushing you to follow what you believe in, and ultimately, hopefully success.
And then you continued to 420s.
Yeah, I was only in 420s actually for a really short time. It was around the time of the Sydney Olympics. I had just sort of finished the junior. It's a sabo, but very similar to an optimist, and and was doing okay. You know, I wasn't, you know, national champion, or I was in the top group.
Yeah.
But I loved it. You know, I was really passionate about it, and I was learning a lot in my racing, but still hadn't sort of made that next jump. And for me to go into a double-handed boat like the 420 is really technical, which I love. You know, just a little bit of development, like understanding of the rig and what's happening. You know, the different techniques, the communication, to share that with another person. I really enjoy, good and bad. And yeah, so I was in 420s only 18 months.
Okay.
You know, really lucky to win the 420 Open Worlds. I never made it to the Youth Worlds.
It was in La Rochelle, right?
It was in La Rochelle. Yeah. And it was just the timing. You know, Australia just won a few months later Olympic gold in 470, and there weren't any other teams wanting to continue for that beginning of 2001, and Victor came to us and said, hey, you know, just come to 470. I thought, wow, this is a big step up.
So you were sailing with your brother in 420?
I was sailing, yeah.
Okay.
So I did the 420 program with him, and then ultimately we did the Athens Olympic campaign together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where did you end up in this campaign? Your first Olympic campaign?
I certainly learned a lot. You know, when I first went to Europe, I was pretty much living with Victor. I didn't have a full license, so I couldn't drive anywhere. It was quite a big step for my parents to say, okay, hey, you know, go overseas with Victor, and we'd only just met him as well. But to do that with my brother made it more comforting, and we ended up quite okay. You know, we got to a world ranking of 6 by the end of 2004, and to be part of that program after the Sydney Olympics was great. You know, it was well funded. We had good support. You know, that was quite instrumental for me to learn that fundamental aspects of the boat, but also get a very clear picture quickly of what to expect and to be in a gold medal winning program.
So what were the next steps towards Olympic gold in London in the end?
Yeah, it was a bit of an up and down journey. You know, if someone had told me at the time, hey, you're going to spend 12 years before you're even going to get to the Olympics, you know, I'm not sure where I would be, to be honest. You know, but I think doing Olympic program and following your dream and you know what the Olympics mean, I think for me, I just was so focused on it. I just wanted to keep going. Didn't care the time. You know, I just put everything into it and was reading everything. You know, doing a lot of fitness, a lot of training, and really motivated through those years. And I think it's naive to think that you're going to have an easy run to an Olympic program. You know, coming up to Beijing, where we got to the world #1 ranking. You know, Nathan Wilmot and Malcolm Page, who went on to win the gold in Beijing. Yeah. They were #2, and we were both trading 1 and 2 in the world, and you know, both pushing each other a lot. And unfortunately, we didn't qualify for the Beijing Games, and that was a big disappointment for me. And I sort of walked away for 8-9 months.
So why didn't you qualify when you said you were already ranked #1 in the world?
Yeah, it was a complicated trial system. In Australia, we run on sort of baseline performance. You have to be at a certain level, and then once you're at that level, it becomes a little bit discretionary. And there's no question that Nathan and Malcolm were older, they're more experienced. They were coming back from the disappointment of Athens. No. They were very motivated, and we were very motivated, quite young. And we just didn't. That's sport, right? We just didn't win the trials, and I guess if you don't go through that bit of disappointment and to reassess, I don't think I would have been as strong as we were in London.
Okay. So after that Beijing trials, you stopped sailing with your brother?
I stopped sailing with my brother actually after the Athens campaign. My brother was very business orientated. We grew up in a family business on the Gold Coast, running hotels and resorts, and we had up to 100 employees, and my brother and I were at different levels of management within the company, and we lived in resorts. We basically doing night shifts, doing reception, cleaning, all sorts of
Impressive,
stuff.
eh? Next to sailing?
Next to sailing, yeah. That was how we helped fund the program. You know, my parents, they had two wishes. One, I would get a university degree. They didn't specify the time frame, which was great. And they also said that if I really are passionate about it, then I need to earn my way. It's not a matter of them paying for everything. They wanted to see how much commitment that I was willing to provide, and part of that, as you know, doing an Olympic campaign to get a job is very difficult. You need to have a lot of flexibility, and I was fortunate that my parents allowed me the flexibility in the job, but they certainly made me work for it. Yeah.
Okay.
And that helped fund it, and then I guess the biggest change after during the Beijing period, I said, I've spent 8 years of my life. I haven't been to the games. I was still passionate about it, and it was interesting for me personally to see how passionate I still was to do it, and then I guess decided to come back and sail with Malcolm and give it everything, and pretty happy with
you teamed up after Beijing with an Olympic gold medalist and a coach who won a lot of medals already.
Yeah, it's a great situation, right? And I guess that's I look back now how fortunate I was to be in that position, and to be in that timing, to have an Olympic champion crew, to have an Olympic the medal maker and Victor, and so much support. And I guess that was my bit of my time. And
what was the biggest challenges or the biggest advantage of sailing with Malcolm?
Yeah, to have that experience on the wire was enormous, and I think particularly in pressured situations is when it really showed, when we're in those situations that you're for a medal race, who beats who scenario. I had so much confidence to know that I had to just worry about myself.
Okay.
Like he would get us through that period, and those nervous moments like the first day of the Olympics, or the Olympic qualifications, and all those parts where you're just you got nervous, or the nervous vibes in the team, and we just didn't have that.
Okay.
Because he was so confident about it, and he trusted me a lot, and I trusted him a lot, and we were just able to to get on with it. We supported each other, and I thought that was quite unique considering the age difference.
How much older?
He was 10 years older.
Okay.
Very different stages of life. But we got on very well, and still do to this day. Yeah.
And then you came to London Olympic Games, winning 2 World Championships before, I think. Was
3, but
3 even?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was pretty obvious you were aiming for gold there. And how did you approach the Olympics itself? What happened the week before and then the first days of racing?
Yeah, I think certainly the expectation coming into London was that we were looking, for us internally we were looking to win, but I think externally there was a lot of pressure because we'd won the 3 worlds, we'd won all the events that year as well, and I think the biggest point was in the World Championships only a few months before. We just had a brilliant week. We won the first 6 races of the Worlds, and everyone was like, what's going on? There was a lot of pressure with our boat as well, and our equipment. I lost count how many times we had to go through measurement.
That was the moment when you changed back to Ziegelmeier, right?
Yeah, it was. And I guess a lot of people didn't realize. For me, it was something that it was a condition that through that London campaign, that I wanted to sail a Ziegelmeier boat. And I actually made the decision in 2009.
Okay.
But first we had to learn how to race. We wanted to use the same equipment as everyone else, and it was something that was really coming from me, with the family aspect. And but when we did change, it became also quite obvious that the boat also provided an advantage.
Okay.
And we won 2 worlds in the Mackay, and we knew how to race. The teamwork was great, and then when you have that speed advantage, it was was quite noticeable.
Absolutely.
So it was great for us. It was a good time for us. But I guess, you know, the first coming into the games, I remember the first week we did a coaches regatta 1 week out. We were expecting a lot of wind and we had no wind. You know, we did this coaches event and we got hammered. Like everything was just not going well.
Okay.
And I remember it pretty clearly because both Luke Patience, the British who ended up winning silver, was in the same position. We were like last and second last. I remember, you know, my wife at the time, like we were racing mixed men and women, and we just were at the back of the fleet. Like we just were, oh my God, you know, what's happening. You certainly go through that moment, and it wasn't just for 1 day, it was actually a week.
Okay.
So it was kind of a bit nerve-wracking to go, you know, hey, what's happening? Do I need to change something?
So
Is
close
it me?
before the Olympics.
So close.
Yeah.
This was like 10 days before the games.
Okay.
I remember Victor sitting us down and said, hey guys, you're not going to lose your ability in a week. Just don't worry about it. Go back to what you know, and, you know, the things will fall into place. And, you know, the first day of the games, which was also my first Olympics, so it was kind of hard to know what to expect. But I drew a lot of support from Malcolm and from Victor through that time. And the first day we were pretty nervous. We hit the top mark on the first race. So by the time we did our 360, we were sailing well. You know, we finished third in the race.
Okay.
And then in you know, the second race we started too early, so we had to come back. We started last, and probably saw one of the best races I have. To come back at the fifth by the second lap. Only that we didn't see a boat coming up to leeward, and in 25 knots had to luff up, change direction by about 180 degrees, almost ripped the kite, and you know, we had to do a 720 on that one. So it was kind of an interesting first day. And, you know, like going through the mix zone and the media, they were like, oh, hey, you guys choking, what's going on, you know. This is uncharacteristic. Are you really nervous? And there's certainly a bit of a game, you know, being in England and Luke going a 1 and a 2 on day one.
Okay.
There's certainly a bit of extra questions that we didn't really want to hear at the time. But then, you know, we settled down. I slept brilliant after day one, and I thought, well, I can't really get too much worse than that. And yeah, we ended up, you know, I guess winning, you know, the last a lot of, like 6 or 5 of the last sort of 7-8 races, and settled down and did what we needed to do.
So what did Malcolm say after that first day?
It wasn't a lot of discussion. You know, I think Malcolm probably wasn't that happy. We haven't really discussed it. But I do remember, you know, what Victor said. You know, Victor put his arm around me and said, hey, it's okay. You know, we'll be all right. And I think that really, you know, really helped to say, okay, hey, we are in the moment, we know what we need to do, but to have that support, and that's been a big part of my career, to have Victor, you know, since I was a kid without a driver's license, to now, you know, have 18 years later and totally different stage, but he's been with me the whole way, and I think that's been, you know, a big part of why I'm still here, but also why I still enjoy, you know, what we're doing as well.
Let's talk a little bit about Victor, since you just mentioned him. What's so special about him? I mean, every one of us that's doing Olympic sailing knows him. A lot of people know him as the medal maker. What's so special? What's the way he works? Like, how does he help you achieving all your goals?
Good question. I don't want to release too much. But I think, you know...
So he will stay mysterious to everyone?
I think, you know, Victor's had a lot of success, right? And I think the timing of the athletes that have come through have helped. You know, I mean, Victor's brilliant, and the athletes that have come through have been successful in the junior classes, have been the right sort of mindset, the right physique, you know, the right opportunity in life and financially and everything else to... And I think, you know, what his success is, he's able to put all that package together. But I think, you know, the 6 gold medals that he's achieved have been, you know, with five different teams. Yeah. So the personalities and the approach is very unique. And I know for myself that he knows me so well. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but he knows me so well, and he's putting in the same as what I am, and I think that's kind of quite rare, that when a coach is living and breathing what you're doing, he's right next to you the whole time, he's pushing you the whole time, and you know, that's been such a rewarding thing for me, but it's also a big motivator for me to know that, you know, he's got my back, and we're going to battle. You know, we're on the water, we're fighting for everything, and pushing
trust
it,
each other,
and that trust, you know, and I trust when in that moment where he says, hey, you know, you need to turn the spreaders this way, or move your jib car back, or you need to increase risk or decrease risk, or, you know, those moments where he says, what are you doing, right? Like, and he have so much trust and respect that it brings you back to the right frame that you need to be in to get the result, and that's ultimately why I think we've been able to be so consistent and continue to develop as a team, and to continue to push no matter what the result is.
After London, you continued with Will Ryan, winning 1.5 years every regatta you took part in, plus getting the World Sailor of the Year award. What is the difference now? I mean, now you're the older one. What changed for you as a helm, being the older one, the wiser one, I would say, and then winning another silver medal in Rio? What was so special about that campaign? And
yeah, I think you know, we had a bit of a joke, Mal and I, you know, when we'd re-campaign, I guess, for Rio, it was obvious that he was going to stop, and he said that you know, I traded to a younger model, better looking, you know, smarter. So I'm just waiting for the time for when we now transition back. But to be, it's kind of a little bit surreal in the sense that, you know, Malcolm was the Olympic champion. He's 3 times world champion before we started sailing, and I was able to draw on his experience and to be in exactly the same position. You know, 3 times world champion, Olympic champion, to be on totally the other foot. When Will stepped in, I think it helped a lot with that transition, because I was aware of what I was feeling at that time. So we were able to adjust the team, the communication, you know, the approach to really match that quite quickly. And you know, Will is extremely smart, very athletic, and at the time, you know, being 17 years younger, you know, he was extremely motivated, and he really brought a new age of sailing, Olympic sailing. He was very, very dynamic, very fit, very aggressive in his style, and you know, I think that was kind of quite obvious. We didn't know where we were, but certainly when we came to Europe in the beginning of 2013, it was very, very clear that you know, we had exceptional speed, we were sailing exceptionally well, and our partnership was, you know, was quite unique. And to win obviously all the events that year, and I think we actually won almost half the races we competed in, was really was quite special, very special to win, you know, the Rolex World Sailor of the Year. I think it made it quite difficult in the 4-year campaign though, because the expectation had been set. You know, it's very hard to what do you do for the next year and keep developing, and you know, we ultimately were dealing with a lot of that coming into Rio, and the fleet, we certainly showed the fleet a lot in that style of sailing, and but you know, it was a great time, and it was a great experience, and
a good result in the end.
And yes,
even though
exactly.
You didn't win, but still, I mean,
exactly. You know, to win,
there are so many teams looking for a medal, fighting for a medal. So,
and I think it's understated. You know, just to get to the games is an amazing achievement. It's something that you have for the rest of your life, and if you're fortunate enough to win a medal or be in a position to win a medal, that's amazing. And you know, to win silver we're really proud, for sure. Yeah.
So now, on the way to Olympic Games in Tokyo, the 3rd one.
Yeah, you know, this is my 5th Olympic campaign. You know, it's different stages of life and different opportunities, and we came through, you know, the Rio campaign, you know, I guess wanting a little bit more. You know, we felt like we made some mistakes. We felt like we could have done things slightly different, as you would always do. No. You know, when you get after the games, you reassess some of the lessons that you've learned, and I think as a team we've been very good to be quite analytical and quite objective and open to say, okay, hey, these are some of the things that we did well, these are some of the things we could have done better. And you know, we came after the Rio Games and said, hey, like, do you want to give it another go? And I guess that's, you know, why we're continuing. We feel like we can be better as a team, be better individually, and hopefully, you know, we can achieve what we want. And as you said before, there's so many teams looking to do the same thing, and that's what makes it interesting, right? It's a unique part of you know, the sporting environment, but it's also a unique period of my life, and for those that are doing Olympic campaigns to share. Yeah.
So let's talk shortly about the 470, the boat. How long did you sail for 70 now?
So since 2001, beginning of 2001, so a long time.
17 years, huh?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, we're getting used to going in that circle, right?
What's so special for you about that boat, or why did you why are you still doing it?
Yeah, you know, I've done a lot of other sailing in different boats, and you know, some of the bigger boats and foiling, and I guess what brings me back to 470 is the technical nature of the boat. It's got a bit of everything. I love the partnership, you know, the communication. I love the fact that it's slow enough that the racing's good. You know, the racing's interesting. It's very strategical. It's very tactical. If you make a mistake, you'll get punished, and it's very much, you know, maybe not as extreme as a laser, but I also love the fact that it's the way the boat has been designed, the complexity of getting the rigging right, getting the tuning right, getting the, you know, the techniques. You have some flexibility in material for development, so that makes it interesting to really match the gear to your size, your weight, your personality, you know, how you want to sail the boat, that style of sailing. And you know, and I love the people. I love the people that we're racing against. So it's fun and it's enjoyable, you know.
So what do you say if it gets a mixed boat in 2024?
I think it's a problem that I won't have to experience. I think what's great about 470 is that it's the last remaining class that you can sail against. You know, men and women can race against each other. I think it's a shame that they made it mixed. You know, it's such a diverse class. A lot of skill sets that you learn in 470 are, you know, critical for some of the big boats, the America's Cup programs, and we've seen that. We've seen that a lot of, you know, the old 470 sailors have gone on to be, you know, heroes of America's Cup, heroes of the Volvo, heroes in business as well. So I think it's going to be an interesting journey for the class. But I do know that the class will adapt, you know, the sailors will adapt, and I think it'll just be a different experience. You know, there's no question that the women can sail the boat just as good as the men, so I think that transition will be relatively short. I guess it's just a bit of a shame that, you know, we're diluting numbers. You know, we've got so many amazing men's teams and women's teams, and I hope we don't lose too many from the class. Yeah.
Interesting times ahead. So as I said before, I want to talk a little bit about your life next to sailing, because we talked a little bit the last weeks already. What you do next to sailing, just explain a little bit, because in Germany, for example, it's pretty common that most of the young people after 420, they start going to university, study something, trying to get a good job. Parents are pushing towards good jobs, so they stop sailing. And I heard a lot of different things from you, so just explain us a little bit what you do and what you did.
Yeah.
You already mentioned before that you worked next to your Olympic campaigns, the first one, so...
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, right? I mean, to be successful in an Olympic program, you need to invest all your time, basically all your money, and all your commitment to say, I want to go to the games. But to do that is difficult, because your friends, your family, your parents on one side are sometimes going on a different path. You know, you see your friends that have their university degree, they're into business and successful, and you know they're moving down that, and sometimes you feel, hey, every year I'm plugging away, I'm getting those 2 or 3%.
Some of them
making
having
gains.
PhDs already.
Exactly, you know, and I think my parents have been pushed me to get an education and pushed me to be in a business mindset, but they've given me the flexibility to do the timing of when it's appropriate to do it. And I think being in that environment was quite critical for me. That yes, it took a long time to finish my university degree. It took 9 years to finish a bachelor of accounting and business, and I've just finished a double master's degree, which took 6.5 years. So it's a long time frame.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy that I've done it, and I know that it's given me a little bit more confidence that after Olympics that I'll have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't always easy. a lot of late nights and a lot of support and a lot of management with the university. A lot of scheduling and timing to know what is possible, what isn't, and that also helped me understand me better for performance. To know what I can do, what I can't do, and to really find where that limit is. And I think that's been quite helpful for me.
Would you say the studying next to sailing, also during regattas maybe, helps you on the water, or helped you?
I think so. Not always, to be honest. We had to be quite selective, and I was very discreet and quiet about exactly what I was doing. For obvious reasons, that if you're running an Olympic program, you're at the level where we're at, and people know, hey, you're up doing assignments right in the middle of a Worlds or something else. They're not going to be overly ecstatic. But I think it's helped me think longer term. It's helped me to say, okay, hey, right now maybe this week it's not going to be great, but I don't have an option. If I really want to do this, I need to do it. And then other times I've said, okay, hey, I can't sacrifice this part. And the university was extremely flexible and very, very supportive for me to balance education with sport. And I think now it's become a lot more supported than I guess back when I started. And I think also the Australian sailing team has taken a really great approach in that. A lot of our athletes now are studying, and I think they've seen the benefits and the synergy between both.
Okay. And you have a family?
Yeah.
And running a business? So it's 3 things next to your Olympic campaign, which is pretty impressive, huh?
I like to be busy. It is busy. I think I've been really lucky to have the right people to support it, to support some of the passions that I've got outside of sport. My parents have been a huge part of that. And I like to do different projects. One of those projects is actually helping support the youth pathway program at club level. I do 2 days a week coaching with them and help support their program and guide them through some of the exercises and scheduling and coaches and things like that. And it was the same program that I learned to sail in at the same club. So that's really rewarding for me to spend that time to give back and to know those kids and to know those families. And I've got some great relationships with them, and to see them now come into state programs and and to jump on the 470 and to meet Victor and to meet all the Olympic heroes when we're training up at the club. It's pretty cool for me to see that. I have a passion for development, for property. I guess that's part of a bit of our family management that property management that we did, and I've always been interested in that space, and I've got involved in some projects. We've just semi-finished a project at the moment, and it is a bit of a juggle. It is challenging, but if you've got the right partnerships and the right support, it's certainly possible. And
the right wife.
And the right wife, that's for sure. And Ricky's been hugely supportive, doing her Olympic campaign, and finishing in the London Olympics, and to do that together was really, really amazing. So she understands what needs to be sort of done in terms of the training and the volume and then the support, but I know she's definitely looking forward Tokyo when it's when it's
over.
sort of finished.
To spend more time together.
Spend more time at home for sure. Yeah. And I think now having 3 kids, it's a really difficult part for me to spend that time away.
To balance it.
To balance, to see
still succeed in the end.
Yeah, hopefully. That's the ultimate goal. It's hard to sacrifice so much time and energy and money to be away when you don't, you're not fortunate enough to get the result. And I think that's part of our approach, that we feel like we can't really afford not to get it, because we're giving up so much in our own sort of way, in our own space. So it's a good motivator for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about point number 4. Almost done. Emotions. What was your biggest defeat, let's say, or the worst moments in sailing, and how did you get through it?
It's a good point. I think it's hard to sort of specify one particular moment, but I think like the experience of missing the trials for Beijing was a pretty big one. It was big enough for me not to want to go anywhere near a 470 for almost a year.
So you stopped sailing.
So I stopped that. I sold everything.
Okay.
Sold everything. Didn't talk to anyone. It was just I found it very difficult emotionally to know what to do. I felt quite angry at the time. Hugely proud that Australia won the gold medal, but for me, everything I wanted to do and still do is about the Olympics. So to not get that and to feel like I haven't achieved what I wanted, but it was also quite hard that my brother was just doing an MBA at Columbia. He's working with McKinsey and Company and very successful on the business side, and it was hard. It was a really difficult period, and for me then to have that right support and to say, okay, hey, I'm gonna come back, was that's part of life, right? You have those experiences and you gotta move on.
And the opposite, the best moment.
I think after the medal race and the London Games, finally realizing that we had won, and for us to be in that position, it was who beats who. It was so close. The first top mark rounding, Luke was winning. The bottom mark, we were winning, and then we had a match race at the top. It was so close. But to have my family there, Riki Racing, my parents, my brother, my parents-in-law, basically
so
every part of extended family was there watching, and
just
to look up on the hill and to say, okay, hey, we did it after 12 years. Of trying to get to the games, and that was a massive highlight, and certainly hard to replicate, that's for sure.
Sounds interesting, yeah. Pretty cool, actually. Yeah. Would be nice to achieve that one day.
Yeah.
You mentioned a few times already that the Olympics is really special for you. When did that feeling, or the feeling that you want to go to the Olympics, when did that start, and why is it so strong?
I guess it's a little bit part of the Australian culture and sport. There's we grow up in my generation, the future generation. The sport in school is something that it's it's a really important part, and for me, just playing different sports at kids and that talk and that culture and that encouragement to get outside and to do something and to get into teams and learn about team environment, that determination, and then the Sydney Games, I was 17 and I got invited to carry the Olympic flag during the closing ceremony of the Sydney Games, and so to walk around the stadium, the closing ceremony with the Olympic flag. I think the fire was burning. It was like, oh my god, this is really cool, right? And I guess I've held on to that feeling and that belief, and said I'd love to be in that centre where all those athletes were watching what we were doing. And I guess that's driven me to keep going, and then you walk into the closing ceremony and you feel what it's like to represent your country. It's an amazing feeling you don't forget, and it's extremely special, that's for sure.
So you would say it's worth all the
Yeah,
the
I would
hustle.
say it's definitely
Okay.
worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and no journey's easy. But I think for myself, looking back for business and for future, and it's very hard to get that experience, and because you know yourself so much, so well, you know what you need to do to push yourself and to be driven, and that preparation, you know, it's translated us a lot as to how I am,
Yeah.
you know, myself, and for business and family, and you know, I think it's a great skill set as well
Yeah.
for future.
Since you already started talking about the future, you told me already that you would stop Olympic sailing after the Japan Games.
Yeah.
What's your goals for the next years then?
Yeah, I guess it's going to be a bit of quite a big shock. You know, it would have marked 20 years in the Olympic team. So more than half my life, you know, chasing the Olympic ideals, and you know, the training and the team environment, and everything else that goes with Olympic campaigning. You know, I'm setting up quite a good support network, and a lot of those contacts that I've had who have supported me as sponsors or mentors throughout, you know, the last 5 campaigns are still with me, and you know, I've been working with them to help look at that transition, and that's something that I guess I started already quite some time ago, to know that when, you know, that final race is finished of the games, if we're lucky enough to be there, you know, that I won't feel like, you know, what am I going to do next, and that's been important for me before I get to the games, to know what's going to happen after, and I think that's something that I can comfortably say, if we can get to Tokyo, that I'll be okay. I'll go into property and you know, have a focus, and yeah, hang up the
what about professional sailing? I mean, you know, you were already involved in the America's Cup attempt of Australia, which was cancelled in the end. What about that? Some big boat racing, or?
Yeah, you know, I think the America's Cup is, you know, it's amazing. You know, it's such a unique challenge. I guess, you know, Australia has always struggled to get the right timing, to get the right backers. We certainly have the right sailors. You know, I think there's so many amazing America's Cup Australian sailors out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit unfortunate we haven't had that opportunity from a backing to get something really established. You know, we tried that. You know, the support of the Oatley family, who sponsors our Olympic program and our Olympic team. You know, it was part of their family's wish to start. But it's, you know, it's a complex environment. It's a challenging environment, and it was really sad that didn't work out. But I think what they have done is to start that, to plant that seed, to say, hey, we can do this. You know, Australia can get into the cup, and whether I'm part of that, I don't know. You know, my focus now is really on the Tokyo Games, and be very hard as an athlete after, at that point, to be good at, you know, good at grinding and that side of it. But you know, I love the big boats as well, and I've just started to do a little bit more, you know, offshore and keelboat sailing, and I think that's something that, you know, I'd love to do after the games.
You already said you studied project management. Could you also imagine just to be the project manager of one of the sailing teams, or you want to be on the boat?
I think, you know, probably a bit of both. You know, I really enjoy putting, you know, teams together, or people together, and projects together, and so I'm passionate about that. You know, looking at the personalities, having the experience to know what is important at the right time, and ultimately in any program or project, or particularly an Olympic program, you know, timing is critical. You can have all the money in the world, and we've seen that in America's Cup projects. You know, they've had unlimited, infinite resource, but at the end of the day, you still run out of time. Yeah. So, you know, it's a big part of it. I obviously enjoy sailing and have done okay. So, you know, to be you know, in the sailing side, you know, it's probably a pretty good synergy as well.
Okay. So, thank you for your time, Mathew.
It's all right.
See you on the race course. And if you have any more questions for him, just text us or send us an email.